But Atratzu, this game came out in 2012. Why are you only playing it now? Haven't you figured that out by now, viewer? I only play video games that are super, super old. That's just kind of how I roll these days. Good evening. Welcome to the Day of the Dead. The Dance of the Death. We're doing the Dance of Death. I don't know what other... Die, die, die. My voice has been hashed enough today. That's enough of that. Hi, I'm Atratzu, and today we're going to talk about an interesting game. We are going to talk about an interesting game indeed. One that... how to even set this up. It's left its impact on me, I think. So, as has already been addressed in the intro, yeah. This is The Walking Dead. Telltale game is the developer, and it was released April 24th, 2012. So, yeah, I'm getting to this game a long time later. And I ended up picking up this game... I ended up picking up The Walking Dead sometime. I don't even remember when, how I ended up coming across it. A bundle somewhere. Maybe it was on sale at one point. Friends sent it to me. I don't remember. I don't remember where I picked up The Walking Dead. I only have the chapters. The first, well, the 5 of the core game. I do not have the special episode 400 Days. And I don't know, so I can't talk anything about that. Sometime I can come back maybe and play through that. We'll see how well I remember it at that point. I don't know if that's going to make much of a difference on when I come back to the game and play through that DLC, if I ever get around to playing through the DLC. We're going to talk about this. We're going to talk about episode 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And we're going to try to do it as spoiler-free-ish as possible, because The Walking Dead is a point-and-click game. That's where I'm just going to cut it off there. There are a couple puzzles, but they're not really puzzles. Played through the whole game, and each chapter gives you an achievement indiscriminately. Like, you finish chapter 1, part 1, I think that's what it's called, right? No, chapter 1, episode 1, chapter 2, episode 1, chapter 3, episode 1. So chapters per episode. So these are, of course, this is episode status. This is episode 1, so you have chapters within episodes. Every time you reach that point, then it gives you an achievement for that. So don't worry about the achievements at all. They come if you play through the game. So the advertised thing, and that many people will tell you about The Walking Dead, is, well, Telltale's set up this expectation of the decisions that you're making in the game are going to affect how the game goes. And that's true to a degree, but the expectations from it vary from bit to bit. So some of the decisions that you make are trivial. Some of the decisions that you make actually change what characters think of you and some optional things. But after you play through it the first time, you can kind of spot... some of the magic goes away. So playing through on your first time, don't worry about it. Try to make decisions as best you can, and yeah, don't look at any of the guides. The guides aren't very helpful. I would say jump into it and just struggle and feel the pain of trying to go through the game. So let's jump into this one, which I jumped a little bit farther in here. Can we go... What happens if we continue? Nope. Can we... So it gives me stats. Alright. Okay, so you can choose individual chapters. That's useful. So let's have a look at this moment. Yeah, let's do this one. Yes, this checkpoint. So... you don't have any context of what's going on here. The initial shock, like each chapter, we'll talk a little bit about each chapter and what's happening in each one, which, I don't know, might border on spoiler territory. I'll try to keep it spoiler-free and, not give anything away. At this point, the walkers, which are the zombies, are no longer a shock. You've had to puzzle your way through. let's talk about what it's like with interacting with characters and objects. So let's go. Wait, do I have that? No, I don't. Maybe I do. Okay, so here's one bit. We found a remote, all right? So let's talk to this guy first. So when you're choosing between options that you want to talk, I'm using a keyboard and mouse, so I use the number keys. 1 is for the top one, which is, any idea where the pharmacy keys might be? Option number 2 is, how'd you end up here? 3 is, go back inside, which is not telling him to go back inside. It's them both of them to go inside. And 4 is to exit. Sometimes you'll end up in these kind of talking situations where you have a limited number of time. You have a limited amount of time that you can respond. So sometimes you have to read pretty quick and be on the making stressful decisions in really short amounts of time. So,
any idea where the pharmacy keys might be?
So that gives you the basic gist of it. There's a lot of character development that goes through The Walking Dead, and towards the final 2 chapters of the game, you get very attached to the friendships and the inner working relationships of these characters, which one thing that I've taken away from learning about Telltale games is that they sure as heck know how to write a game. So we've got the boring stuff of the puzzle finding out of the way right now, because you don't know where these items are, so I don't feel like I'm spoiling it by showing which item goes where. If you want to use a TV remote, where are you going to point it? At the TVs. Bam. So when you're selecting between different options of interacting with an object, you need to use the number keys to cycle between those as well. I don't believe that it ever is more than 4 that you cycle between. And then sometimes different things happen. The tooltips are pretty straightforward typically. So you need to, I don't know how else to fill this time. Now he gets it going. So if you want more experience, like experiencing the world and knowing what Lee thinks of things, point the crosshairs in a direction and then use the eyeball first to indicate that Lee looks at it. And then if you see a door, that indicates to open the door. Hand is to pick up stuff or to interact or open a door or something like that. And then the actual item itself pulls from inside of your inventory. As you can see, I have an axe right now. So if you go here, you have an eye, you can look at the lock. He looks at the lock, he says, it's a lock. And you open the lock, you go here, and then you're just like, how do I open this lock? It's like, well, remember, you have to go there and ask somebody how to open it. And, yeah, no, that's all that one is. And so you're just like, all right, well, how about we remote control that? And he's like, what? That doesn't make any sense. Are you crazy?
Hey, man, what are you doing? We can't even think about going out there unless the keys are out there for sure.
It's like, why do you try to do that? That's just dumb. So we're just like, all right, let's use an axe.
Hey, man, what are you doing?
He's like, wait, why are you trying to use an axe?
The keys are out there for sure.
Now, this game mode that I'm playing through, this was my second time playing through, that I was just kind of contrasting some of the choices that I could make and how big of a difference they were going to make. I don't feel that I need to get much farther than I got with this game to know, okay, it's worth playing through a second time if you're really curious, but I feel guilty making different decisions than the ones that I did. But there are different outcomes that you can have in the game, can be interesting, and definitely worthwhile a second or third playthrough if you really want to know more about the game. This time I set up the game so that the tooltips don't instantly pop up, so you don't see everything around here. Versus, let's jump back to the main menu and let's play. And okay, so let's just make this one. All right, you've got standard and then you got minimal. So that one was set to minimal user interface, which turns off hints, help, and choice notifications. So that's to the top right. You'll have something that'll appear when you interact with somebody, and it's like, Dennis will not forget that you made that comment. Clementine was a little bit more afraid. Clementine was comforted. You gave Duck food. So that's kind of the idea. So there it is. Glenn will remember you lied. So standard, I would say I played through standard on the first time through just because I'm not I don't know. How else are you going to figure out what to interact with in this kind of game? Because you don't just interact with everything like you might normally interact with a normal point-and-click game. So I decided to stick with the standard. But minimal UI would be fun for like cinematic mode or something like that. So it's not letting me go back. Let's do that. And now let's go back. Did it make another? Okay, good. It didn't make that. So let's jump in here. And this is the game that I played all the way through to chapter 5. Then we can't look at that one at all. No time left. Around every corner. Long road ahead. Starving for help. A new day. So, what to say about these? Each chapter has a theme. Each chapter takes maybe, depending on how well you figure out the puzzles, maybe 2-3 hours. I spent a total of 15 hours playing the game. Most of that was playing through on my first try. A couple hours here and there, just, you know, of idling, not doing anything. Making a sandwich, baking cookies, you know, things that you do in your real life, and you're just like, I'm going to leave the game up. But mostly like, reliable for the most part. I don't want to show the stats, but you already saw the stats for one. It kind of gives you an idea of what you're dealing with in the game. Some key pivotal choices. I don't think it's going to spoil too much, but I'm not going to show any more of the stats. Episode 1, the theme of this episode is, let's just say right now, if you're worried about anything being potentially like mildly spoiled, if you want to go into the game completely fresh, leave now. We're just going to say that right now. Otherwise, I'm just going to talk a little bit about the theme of each chapter as we move on and kind of what my general impression of each chapter was. There's a lot to unpack. The Walking Dead is not a happy story. Remember when you learned about the different types of stories there are, you have comedies where everyone lives. It's not necessarily a funny story, but no one dies in your stories. Or you have, well, none of the good characters die. That's a comedy. And then you have tragedies where one, most, or all of your characters end up dead. And this would definitely be the tragedy genre. You've got zombie survival as your main theme. What did you expect? So, also, it has a horror genre tag, so, you know, beware to those of you with weaker constitutions. There was one specific scene. We'll get back to that. All right. So let's talk about each chapter just really briefly. So you have episode 1, A New Day. This is the like initial outbreak. You learn the background of Lee Everett and Clementine, and the relationship that these two share. Lee Everett, which, I mean, this is just basic stuff that you can find on the store. Lee Everett used to be a professor, and he comes across Clementine, and then you get to make choices on how much of his backstory that you're going to reveal to the people around there. I'm just going to leave that option up to you on what you want to do. I personally preferred choosing truthful answers, but that's not as obvious as you might always think. They don't always put it in brackets, being like, this is a lie. So that kind of makes it a little bit complicated. Clementine is just a poor little abandoned girl who, yeah, Lee comes across and helps throughout the game. But, you know, don't be saying anything mean to Clementine, you know, just because I don't know if it matters or not, but you be nice to her. She's a sweet girl, and she does not deserve anything that is mean happening to her, which normally the game shields her pretty well, but not to say that she's safe. So the first chapter is all about the initial breakout of zombies, how they handle it, where they kind of station themselves. All right. The next one that you have, I did not like this episode rather. This was my least favorite episode. I hated this episode. I did not like it. Was so stressful. I was like, how am I gonna get through this game? This is chapter 2, and I'm just like, I was nauseated. I was making hard choices. I was very much bought in by the Telltale style of storytelling, where I felt responsible for the decisions that I was making in this game. And it's one of those that I'm still looking up for a word. Here's the mission for all of you out there. If you can figure out what the word is, where no matter what choice you make, something bad happens. Yeah, let me know what that word is. Lose-lose, no-win situation, however you want to say it. you're facing many of those in this game, and it is uncomfortable, and I hate it because I absolutely I want to choose the right decision to lead us all to victory, and you're just not going to have that. You have to choose between the lesser of two evils. You need to make snap judgment calls. You're going to screw up, and that's going to happen in the game, and then you have to deal with the consequences. I guess you could like reload the entire game and start from the beginning, but come on, man. That's going to take way too long. Just deal with your mistakes. It makes the story all that more compelling. Episode 2 was absolutely disgusting towards the end of it. Nauseated me. I had a very difficult time getting through it, but the game got a little bit more tolerable from that point out. Well, a little bit more tolerable. Episode 3 starts off extremely stressful, and then it kind of mellows out a little bit and becomes a little bit more manageable getting through it, but then like the tension on these characters has mounted, and you can really start to see the impact psychologically that's happening on all the different characters that are coming along, and you discover just kind of like a long-term plan on how to survive, because remember, each phase, each chapter, each episode that they're going through, they're needing to figure out, okay, this isn't working anymore, so now we have to deal with this. And so I have to deal with this, and I have to deal with this, and it's just one thing after another after another. But there is a span of time in between each one. Well, there's a span of time in between episode 1 and episode 2, but episode 2 and 3 are right immediately after each other. Episode 4 is character development. Let's just say that. It's almost like they switched gears. They added a couple characters, and it's like they switched gears and had to introduce these characters to you for the final climactic moment of the game. A couple more things to point out. It's more storytelling. It's not quite filler. It has a lot of substance to it, but that's kind of the gist of my experience with it. Episode 5. No time left. All right. Episode 5 wrapped up the game, and it wrapped it up in the good's not the word. Regarding the storytelling, it was done excellently. There are decisions that you make that really the final decisions that you make in episode 2 that start before like right when you start at episode 5. Episode 4 ends right at the end that it butts up against episode 5. You make some choices at the end of episode 4, which I just blend into both of them, that really, really were touching, and episode 5 just all hell breaks loose throughout the rest of the game. And it's just snowball effect of just bad stuff happening one after the other. Actually, there's some right, okay, so this one brings the whole thing to a climactic ending. It wraps it up. There were tears. Atratzu cried. Yeah, it was super compelling storytelling. Fantastic way to end it. There weren't very many puzzles anymore. This was just wrapping up the whole game. That was my impression of episode 5. It was probably the shortest episode to play through, but it had me. It had me hook, line, and sinker. I was ready to play through and experience the rest of the Walking Dead by this point. Nothing was nearly as nauseating as Chapter 2, but here's the thought. At the end of Chapter 2, was I desensitized, or was Chapter 2 really just that bad? And I don't know if I can give an answer for that. I get desensitized pretty quickly when it comes to violence and gore. So, yeah, you'll have to make your own judgment from that. And of course, special episode, I haven't played this one. So, there is one thing that I want to talk about regarding gore. There's a part in episode 4 where you can make a choice on something that can be particularly gory. You can make that choice also in several other chapters, but episode 4 is one that I'm just trying to cryptically say, kind of weave around it so I don't spoil anything. I made a very tough choice, and the lighting in my room isn't always the best, and I noticed that my face was reflecting off of my monitor, and I was making the exact same face that Lee was during that moment of the game. And that's when I was like, oh man, yeah, really good storytelling. And ugh, man, it was gross. So that's my bit. You've heard my thoughts about it, and I can't really show much more. Let's just show like the beginning part. The beginning part where you can kind of have, okay, let's rewind. In the beginning of a new game, you kind of get the gist of what it's like to have to make choices when you're going through it, and we'll just go from there. We'll do the first bit here so you can kind of see what a little bit of the beginning gameplay is like, rather than just the walking around section. You have to have a bit of a conversation going on. The game series adapts to the choices you make. I didn't finish reading that sentence before I ran out of time. Telltale Games presents, in association with Skybound Entertainment, The Walking Dead. What? That's not a scary sounding voice? The Walking Dead. There. Better? We can chop that one in and splice it in. Episode 1. A New Day. I see a red moon rising. I know the end is coming soon. Looks like we're in for nasty weather. We're all staring at each other awkwardly. And here's the bit. Well, I don't think you did it.
Well, I reckon you didn't do it then.
Reckon. Reckon's not my vocabulary. So here's your options. You can do 1, 2, 3, or 4. Silence is an option. You know what they say about reckoning.
You know what they say about reckoning?
I don't, but I reckon it's a lot like assuming.
Yeah, something like that.
I haven't chosen that option yet. So, as you can see, you can kind of look around the cab, and I don't see any eyeball things. And you can choose between what you want to say. If you want to say nothing, and there is a limited amount of time. So if you run out of time, you say nothing. So we'll show what that is.
But you don't talk too much, do you?
But you don't talk too much, do you? And then sometimes in the top right or top left, depending on the settings that you go with, you'll have the officer noticed. The officer noticed that you didn't say anything, or noted your silence. But you don't have that in this particular game mode because we have minimal things. So you can look at that to interact with them. And you have a Macon then. What do you think?
I'm just glad I chose law and not.
And yeah, this is the first bit of the game, which again, it's like kind of setting the tone. You see one police car that goes back there. You continue holding your conversation like this, and it's just you kind of get the feel for what it's like to play through the game and what options you want to give on what you want to say to him. And there's another cop car. There are more cop cars, way more cop cars. Not really.
Not really.
Well, it's my car, so I tell you what I want.
You might have the right to remain silent,
But just like look at the types of camera angles that they're getting when they're telling this game. This is how you tell a story in a point and click game. It's I need to play the Telltale Borderlands games. Could be I did, or she married the wrong guy. So he doesn't answer for any of those. And then you'll notice to the top right there was the little icon indicating that it's saved. Oh, we got more people that are going by. So something's going on in that town. What do you think it could possibly be? I don't know. You didn't get this game knowing anything about this. So they keep switching camera angles, and you get all these different engaging shots. It's shot more like a show or a movie than it is actually shot like a video game. That's what I appreciate about it, and that's kind of like my background in... We just hit a cardboard box. As my background in graphic design, cinematography. You know, I just kind of try to take a step back and appreciate that the developers for this game did a...
Well,
I don't want to say
Blabbermouth,
anything. That the developers really put a
something.
lot of effort in into making this game, and there's like, what are they called? Cell shade? Is that what these 3D models are? Are these 3D models? I think these are 3D models, and they're cell shaded, so they have an extremely stylistic look. It's a no-brainer that they took over making some Borderlands related storytelling content. It was just a good idea all around. Very stylistic. It ages really well. I had nothing to say. We just hit a zombie. Bam. And thus the game starts. Don't drive distracted, boys and girls. That's the moral of this story. And that is where we're ending it. Let's go back to the main menu so I don't exit out of the whole game. That's it. Thank you very much for watching. Once again, my name is Atratzu. I would appreciate a like and a subscribe. And, you know, if you feel like it, up for it, a comment. All those good things. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Atratzu signing off.